McConnell. Leader McConnell.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome back. Georgia is one of the key places where there have been these questions about voting, whether or not you agree or not with what the legislature did or what the Democrats say. That said, isn't this really about 2022, 2024, and that Democrats could make an impact by making this a political issue, especially in a place like Georgia when there's a competitive race there with Senator Warnock? Isn't that really something that they could potentially swing that race based on that, and doesn't that concern your side?
Well, they're assuming what they're trying to do is popular. It's interesting that in deep blue New York, two of the issues that they would probably mandate at the federal level were actually on the ballot in New York. No excuse absentee voting was defeated. And what was the other one? Do you remember? There was another of their favorites.
In New York State.
Yeah, there were actually two ballot measures in New York this last November. One of them was no excuse absentee voting, voted down. There was a second one that I can't think of at the moment.
ID? I think it was ID. ID ballot harvesting or ID?
It was one of the favorite ones that also went down. This was in a deep blue state, and both of these issues were related to very simple kind of ballot integrity measures that states have enacted. So they're assuming this is a popular thing to do. I would argue that it isn't. We know that if they federalize this, they will eliminate voter ID at the polls. We know they'll do that. That's overwhelmingly supported by Democrats, Republicans, and independents around the country. So I dispute the notion that this underlying bill is popular with the American people.
Leader McConnell. What about the components? I have a question for Senator soon after. But what about the components? What about the components of the Democrats bill that would put in protections so that it would be more difficult to make political firings of election officials, to et cetera, in states around the country?
Yeah, you know,
is that something that concerns you?
I think they assume that people who get elected to the legislatures are idiots. They get elected by the people too. Why would any legislature in America want to overturn the counting of votes? They have to get elected by those people too. The notion that some state legislature would be crazy enough to say to their own voters, we're not going to honor the results of the election is ridiculous on its face.
But so many of these election officials, have been espousing what the former president has said.
Speaking of the former president, he's having a press conference on Thursday on January 6th. Given that you said he is morally and practically responsible for the attack, is it appropriate for him to have the press conference and likely spew the notion that the election was stolen?
It'll be interesting to see what he has to say.
Do you think the election was stolen?
One of the prerequisites of any appropriations bill is having bipartisan support. As we know with the BBB, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
For our Catholic viewers out there, one of the prerequisites they like to see is pro-life provisions, the Hyde Amendment, Helms Amendment. And is that a red line still for your party?
Yeah, the Hyde language has been boilerplate for 30 or 40 years. And what I think Senator Shelby has said to Senator Leahy, basic traditional riders, no poison pills, and parity for defense and non-defense. To the extent that the Democrats are willing to meet those conditions, then I would think we'd have a chance of getting an omnibus appropriation February the 18th.
Senator Manchin also weighing in leading rights and potentially changing filibuster rules today. Have you had any contact with him over the holiday break? I know he said he was in close talks with Democrats about potentially addressing this issue. Have you gotten any renewed assurances from Senator Manchin about not changing the filibuster?
Well, we talk to each other all the time about these issues. As we all know, the only two Democrats who seem to be resistant to breaking the Senate these days are Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. So obviously, yes, we do talk to them. All indications are that they still believe the Senate as an institution is important and doesn't need to be turned into the House, or put another way, doesn't need to be broken.